Okay, welcome everyone. Ready to start? My name is Brendan Martin. I'm a member of the New Economy's Board of Directors. And thank you all for joining our spring briefing and for being part of our community of supporters. We know we can't do this work without any of you. So thank you so much for being here. I'm excited for what we have to tell you about today. So we launched this briefing series a few years ago to keep you all updated with the disparate, broad work that the New Economy Project gets to do. And we hope that these briefings let you know about aspects of the organization you might not already be familiar with. So today, we're excited to spotlight the New Economy Project's work with the New York State Community Equity Agenda, which is a really powerful coalition of groups across the state organizing for economic democracy and racial justice. So over the next half hour, you'll hear directly from our New Economy Project staff, which includes Legal Director Susan Shin, Senior Campaign Organizer Mike Sanmel, and our public bank campaign organizer Tosif Ashan. So we've also built in time for you all to share, for us to share ways you can get involved in these actions and some time for Q&A. So as you hear the presentations, please feel free to enter your questions into the chat and the Q&A at the bottom of your screen through the presentation, and we'll get to your questions at the end. So before I turn it over to staff, I'd just like to share, I'm supposed to share one reason I got involved on the New Economy Project and agreed to serve on the board, but I don't know if there's exactly one reason as an overarching reason that the New Economy Project does work that encompasses so much of what we all believe needs to happen in the city, for everything from keeping payday lenders out of the city to creating a public bank. And it's there's really no other organization like it, and including the one that I am executive director of, which is a great complement to the work that we get to do here at New Economy Project. So there's a lot of organizations that try to express the vision of the new economy. There's not that many that get to help both keep the bad economy at bay and help create the new economy so much as New Economy Project. So I've been a very proud member of the board since I joined, and I'm very, very excited to have you here and get a chance to hear from our staff. So with that, I'll pass it over to Susan.
Great. Thank you so much, Brendan, and welcome everyone. Since New Economy Project was founded, we've been at the forefront of fights for financial justice in New York City and in New York State. So for example, we've played a pivotal role in keeping predatory payday lending out of New York. And that's critical because payday loans are high-cost short-term loans that carry triple-digit interest rates and exorbitant fees that trap people in a cycle of debt. Fortunately, New York State has one of the strongest usury laws in the country, making it a felony to charge more than 25% interest on a loan. As a result, New Yorkers save nearly $800 million a year in fees that payday lenders would otherwise extract from low-income people and communities of color across the state. But despite the clear benefits our state and its residents have reaped from banning payday lending, the industry relentlessly lobbies Albany lawmakers year after year for a carve-out that would enable them to make payday loans in New York. And year after year, New Economy Project has organized a broad statewide coalition to fight back and make sure Albany doesn't open the floodgates to payday lending, which would devastate working Black and Brown communities. Once again this year, the industry is pushing a bill that would authorize financial technology companies to make, quote, earned wage advances to workers who struggle to get from paycheck to paycheck, even though these so-called advances are just payday loans by another name. The industry too often succeeds in convincing lawmakers that they're meeting the needs of low-income people and communities of color that mainstream banks are failing to serve. And I should add, the industry is aided in no small part by the lavish campaign contributions it makes to our elected officials. But obviously the answer to persistent bank redlining and economic inequality is not allowing predatory companies to flood communities with debt trap loans. After many years of bruising battles, it became really clear to us that we needed to go on offense and shift the narrative in Albany toward affirmative solutions that address root causes of inequities in our financial system and our economy, and that build community wealth. And in 2017, we founded a statewide coalition that would do just that. So I'm pleased now to pass it over to my colleague, Mike Sanmel, who's going to tell you about this powerful coalition called the New York State Community Equity Agenda. Mike?
Thank you, Sue, and good evening, everybody. I'm looking over at the attendees list and seeing a lot of friends. I have the privilege of staffing the Equity Agenda Coalition, which is made up of more than 50 organizations from every single corner of the state, working together to advance a shared vision of economic democracy and racial justice. And I think the secret sauce in that coalition, what really makes it click, is the diversity of groups we've worked really hard to bring together, right? It's everybody from grassroots community organizing outfits, faith-based civil rights groups, labor unions, legal advocates, community development credit unions, worker cooperatives, community land trusts. People are coming at building a new economy from a whole lot of different angles. And together, we're working to develop solutions and promote democratic ownership of finance, land, housing, and businesses, while at the same time fighting a system that extracts wealth from low-income Black and Brown communities. So I could talk about our policy platform, but I think it's even better for you to hear it from our coalition members. And we've got a video that does just that. So I'm going to let my team play that.
New York, we've got to talk about economic justice.
We like to think of our state as a progressive place.
But the fact is,
we're home to some of the worst inequality in the country.
That inequality is not an accident.
It's a product of systems that extract wealth from low-income communities and communities of color and exploit our environment.
All for the benefit of a privileged few.
We need to say no to the extractive economy and say yes to economic development strategies that put racial and economic justice front and center.
That democratize decision-making about what happens in our communities.
And that build broadly shared community wealth.
That's why more than 40 groups from across New York have come together to fight for the Community Equity Agenda.
The Equity Agenda's priorities include concrete changes
New York can and should make right now to advance a new vision for economic development.
Number one,
New York needs to make public money work for the public good by divesting from Wall Street and facilitating the creation of public banks across the state.
Number two,
New York needs to crack down on banks and other financial companies that systematically extract wealth from our communities.
Number three,
New York needs to support community-controlled finance by funding the New York State Community Development Financial Institutions Fund.
this money will help expand the reach of a statewide network of mission-driven, neighborhood-based credit unions and loan funds,
which invest in the same communities that continue to be redlined by the big banks.
Number four,
New York needs to promote worker cooperatives.
Worker co-ops pay higher wages than traditional businesses, give workers a voice on the job,
and root wealth locally.
Number five,
New York needs to treat housing as a human right.
by expanding tenant protections and by investing in permanently affordable social housing through tools like community land trusts.
Together, we can build a just economy that works for all New Yorkers.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us. Join us now. That's it.
Really like that video, and it's great to see so many of our coalition partners from around the state. As they were going through the policy platform, you heard Sue earlier talk about some of the work that's going on right now, as we get into crunch time on the legislative session to stop some of these really dangerous industry-backed bills. You heard a little bit about our work to support community development financial institutions. A couple years ago, the equity agenda had a really historic win, getting first in the nation's state money for CDFIs. We continue to fight to expand that and make it easier for CDFIs to access that funding, but a big milestone. I see some of our worker co-op folks on the line. You know, we've been fighting really hard to get Albany to do something to support worker co-ops, which they haven't done in 40 years, and I think making some really good progress. And you heard a little bit about public banking, and I want to turn it over to my colleague Tausif to talk a little bit more about that.
Thanks, Mike. Hello, everyone. My name is Tausif Hassan, and I'm very proud to be working on the public banking campaign at New Economy Project. So you've all seen the video. It's really great to see so many awesome faces from around the state, like Mike said. And one of the big policy platforms of the equity agenda is the public banking campaign. And this year, we are fighting really hard to pass the New York Public Banking Act, which is an exciting law that would create a framework for local governments around the state, including New York City, to establish public banks that are accountable to New Yorkers and chartered to serve the public interest. So interest in public banking has surged in the wake of the recent collapse of Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. I'm sure many of you have seen that in the news. What you may not know is that these are actually the second and third largest bank failures in United States history. That's right. It's really major news, and it's easy to understand why. Across New York, billions of public dollars are deposited in banks that engage in risky, abusive activities that run against the state's public policy objectives. For example, Signature Bank, at the time it imploded, was holding $60 million of our public dollars here in New York City. This is the same bank that for years, we at New Economy Project and other housing justice partners have sounded the alarm bell over Signature's deliberate and widespread multifamily lending to landlords that unlawfully evict tenants and systematically deregulate apartments, fueling speculation and displacement in low-income communities and communities of color. In fact, many of the banks entrusted with holding public money are notorious for engaging in harmful practices, from predatory lending and redlining to financing fossil fuel corporations. In fact, 5 of the biggest banks holding New York City's public deposits pumped $1.2 trillion in financing to the fossil fuel industry just between the years of 2016 and 2021. And this is why we need a public bank, because with the public bank, New York City could ensure that our public money works for the public good. A public bank would allow us to divest from Wall Street and reinvest in permanently affordable housing, renewable energy, worker-owned businesses, and other vital community needs. If you follow New Economy Project, you probably know that we've been leading the fight for a public bank here in New York City, working alongside the Public Bank NYC Coalition. Through the statewide equity agenda, we're banding together with public bank coalitions and activists in Rochester, Buffalo, Long Island, and beyond to build broad public support for public banking. Together, we've secured sponsorship of the New York Public Banking Act from over a majority of the New York State senators and a large majority of the Assembly Democratic Caucus. We've organized advocacy days in Albany, coordinated local actions, and generated support from hundreds of municipal and county officials from all over the state. In fact, just next week, we'll be back in Albany as we continue to push lawmakers to act on public banking before the legislative session ends. And the week after, we're co-hosting a town hall on public banking in the Bronx. So as you can see, there is a lot going on in the public banking campaign. And if you're interested in learning how you can get involved, check out the coalition's website, publicbanknyc.org. As you can see, a link has just been dropped in the chat, and keep an eye on your inbox for further updates from the campaign. So with that, I am happy to go ahead and pass it back over to Brendan.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, before we get involved in the Q&A to follow up on the presentations you just had from staff, I want to share some ways you can get involved with our work. First of all, contact your state legislature and urge them to pass the New York Public Banking Act so we can bring public banking to New York. We're sharing an easy-to-use form in the chat, which you can use to directly email your state legislature. And we'll also share that link in a follow-up email. Second, please also donate to the New Economy Project to keep this work going strong. If you're already a New Economy Project donor, thank you. But please continue to donate generously and please consider increasing your support. If you never donated before, please donate and help us keep doing this important work. Your support is meaningful and very appreciated. So please, you'll get the link where you can donate. And thank you again for joining and for all your support for the New Economy Coalition. We do an Economy Project. We look forward to keeping in touch. Please follow us on social media and look out for a follow-up email. We'll share links to resources, upcoming events, and other ways to get involved, including community actions that we and coalition members are organizing across the city. So stay tuned. Our next quarterly briefing will take place this summer. And have a great evening, everyone. Thank you.